Welcome to the Write on Purpose podcast, where we empower aspiring authors in the second half of their lives to discover the joy and fulfillment of crafting their legacy through the written word. Join me, Brad Swift, a seasoned Write on Purpose coach, as I share insights, strategies, and inspirational stories to guide you on your journey of self-discovery and creative expression. You can learn more about Write on Purpose coaching at wbradfordswift.com/coach. Now here's today's show. Hi everybody, yes, this is Brad Swift, your Write on Purpose coach, and today's topic is going to be a little bit different. Title, Backing the Wrong Horse or Running the Wrong Race. Why politics itself is the bigger problem. Now, as you may be able to tell from those titles, I'm going outside the normal topics that I normally write about, talk about, and way outside of my comfort zone. But I'm committed to continuing to do my own deep work and to then share about it here. So let's dive in. In the lead up to the 2024 U.S. elections, I found myself reflecting on the role that I wanted to play in influencing the outcome. I had recently launched a personal initiative I called the Purposeful Politics Project, aimed at getting people involved and voting. My mission was clear: and support Democratic candidates and help motivate those who may have grown cynical or complacent to get out and vote. But then I had a conversation with Tim Banker, who is not only one of my oldest and closest friends, but also my heroic coach. It turned my perspective upside down. We were talking about the upcoming elections when he said something that floored me. It went something like this: I don't believe our political leaders are even addressing the most serious issues we're facing. Tim went on to explain that too much of their focus, the politicians' focus, is on simply getting reelected, and doing so in such a divisive way, including making the other side wrong, rather than tackling the real threats to our future. To say I was stunned would be an understatement. He wasn't just expressing disillusionment, he was hinting at something deeper. And then he pointed me to The Crash Course by Chris Martenson from Peak Prosperity. Well, curious and intrigued as usual, I dove into the 26 lesson series over the Labor Day weekend, and my mind was blown. It was a rude wake-up call that made me realize we may not just be backing the wrong horse, we may be participating in the wrong race. The real issue isn't the candidates, but the system itself, politics as we know it. And here's why. Some of the key points from the crash course, why we might be focusing on the wrong race. Number one, the unsustainability of exponential growth. One of the fundamental insights from the crash course is the concept of exponential growth. Martenson explains that our entire economic and political system is built on the assumption of perpetual growth, whether it's KDP, energy consumption, or resource extraction. But here's the problem. We live on a finite planet, and exponential growth simply cannot continue indefinitely. And our political leaders are still talking about economic growth as the ultimate goal. Well, they're missing the most important reality. The planet itself cannot sustain infinite consumption and expansion. Second point, energy as the master resource. Martenson makes it clear that energy, particularly oil, is the master resource that powers our economy. Everything depends on it: food production, transportation, manufacturing, etc. And yet, many political candidates only talk vaguely about energy independence without addressing the coming peak oil crisis. We're burning through fossil fuels faster than we can find alternatives. And while renewable energy is essential, it's not being scaled fast enough to avert disaster. The focus should be on energy transitions and sustainability, not just energy independence in the form of continued fossil fuel reliance. And then we got point number 3, the fragility of the financial system. The 2008 financial crisis was a warning shot, but we haven't heeded it. Martinson outlines how the global financial system is built on unsustainable levels of debt. Central banks continue to pump money into the system, inflating asset bubbles and creating false stability. Political candidates rarely address the fragility of the global economy in a meaningful way. Instead, they propose policies that kick the can down the road. When the next crisis hits, it won't be so easily papered over. Unfortunately, and all too true, the people we're kicking the can to are our children, grandchildren, and their children as well. This point, hit me hard. What kind of future is my generation and I leaving to my grandchildren, Logan and Piper? And point number 4, environmental degradation and climate change. We hear about climate change in the political sphere, but the true depth of the crisis is often glossed over. Martinson's crash course lays out in stark terms the environmental degradation we are experiencing: soil erosion, deforestation, and collapsing ecosystems. These are issues that require radical shifts in how we govern and consume, but instead political leaders promise jobs and economic growth without addressing how this growth contributes to planetary destruction. And then we have point number 5, human population and resource scarcity. The world's population is growing, but the planet's resources are shrinking. Martinson presents the uncomfortable truth that we are on a collision course with resource scarcity. Water, food, minerals, all are becoming harder to find and more expensive to extract. If political leaders aren't planning for a future where scarcity rather than abundance is the new norm, then they are not dealing with reality. And then point number 6. Politics is stuck in the old paradigm. Perhaps the most important point Morrison makes is that politics itself is a part of the problem. The endless cycle of electioneering and short-term thinking prevents politicians from addressing the deep, systemic issues that threaten our future. As long as the focus remains on winning elections rather than planning for the long-term sustainability of our society and planet, well, we're stuck. It's not just that we're backing the wrong candidates. We're participating in a political system that is out of sync with the essential challenges we face. Okay, everybody, take a deep breath. There is hope. Let's look at what should we be focusing on instead. If politics, as we know it, is not equipped to tackle these pressing issues, then what should we focus on instead? Well, to start with, the real race we should be engaged in is not for political office, but for saving our planet and our species. Let's look at a few points. Number 1, redefine what progress means. We need to stop equating progress with growth and start thinking about sustainability. Progress should mean leaving a livable planet for future generations, not increasing KDP at the expense of the environment. Number 2, invest in local and resilient communities. Instead of waiting for political leaders to fix things, we can begin by building resilient local communities. These communities can focus on sustainability, local economies, and self-sufficiency, areas where individuals can make a real impact. And point number 3, shift the conversation. We need to put the conversations away from traditional politics and towards global survival issues. Candidates who aren't talking about the essential crisis of our time, climate change, energy scarcity, ecological collapse, well, they simply aren't worthy of our vote. And this is one of the reasons I'm sharing this here on Substack. Now, there has been some pushback on the crash course. Since its initial release, Martinson's crash course has sparked a mix of admiration and criticism. While many appreciate its deep dive into the interconnected crisis of economy, energy, and environment, well, others have been less convinced. Martinson's predictions, especially concerning economic collapse, energy depletion, and environmental degradations, have drawn substantial pushback over the years. One point, criticism of alarmism. Martinson's focus on exponential growth and the fragility of our systems has been labeled as overly pessimistic by some. Critics argue that while his concerns are valid, his timeline and predictions are often seen as exaggerated. They question whether his forecasts accounts for potential technological innovations or policy interventions that could soften the impact of the crisis he discusses. And then the second point is skepticism about peak oil. Martinson has been a vocal proponent of peak oil, the idea that global oil production will reach a peak and then decline, triggering economic and energy crisis. While some experts agree with this concept, others believe Martinson underestimates the role of technology. Innovations like hydraulic fracturing and alternative energy sources have extended the timeline for oil dependence, leading some to argue that his warnings were premature. And then point number 3, renewable energy optimism. Another common critique is that the crash course doesn't fully account for the rapid advancements in renewable energy. While Martinson highlights the inadequacies of renewable energy scaling fast enough to prevent an energy crisis, others argue that solar, wind, and other renewable technology are progressing faster than anticipated and can offset much of the predicted decline in fossil fuels. And then last of all, point 4, methodological concerns. Some analysts have questioned the methodology behind Martinson's conclusions, suggesting that his data interpretation is somewhat selective. The interdisciplinary nature of his work, drawn from economics, energy, and environmental science, has led to concerns about the depth and accuracy in each field. Critics point out that combining complex subjects without enough nuance can lead to overgeneralized conclusions. Despite the criticism, Martinson has built a strong, dedicated following, with many people appreciating his holistic approach to global challenges. His ability to connect seemingly disparate issues like finance, energy, and the environment has been particularly valued by those seeking a broader understanding of systemic risk. So, engagement with critics. To Martinson's credit, he has remained open to engaging with his critics, addressing concerns through interviews, webinars, and discussions. This ongoing dialogue has helped refine his views, though the critiques around his perceived alarmism and methodological choices remain. Martinson's crash course continues to resonate with individuals concerned about the future, sparking critical discussions about sustainability and resilience. While it has drawn criticism for its perceived pessimism and selective data use, the pushback underscores the complexity of predicting and solving interconnected global issues. As we navigate an uncertain future, the debates around Martinson's ideas remind us of the importance of diverse perspectives and ongoing dialogue in addressing our most pressing challenges, which is why I'm sharing this with you today. And I encourage you to share it with others if any of these points resonate with you. Which is why in the article on Substack, I've put a share button there. If you care about the planet and our future generations, please share this article with others. And my final thoughts, well, for now anyway. I started the Purposeful Politics Project to influence the 2024 election. But now I see that the real challenge isn't just about getting the right candidates in office. The entire political system as it stands is failing to address the most urgent threats to our future. It's time to think differently, to stop backing the wrong horse and start focusing on the real race. The race to focus on is to create a sustainable future for ourselves and the planet. Now, again, on Substack, you can explore further. There's a link to the full crash course, the one that I went through. There's a link there. And also, there's a condensed crash course, which you can go through in about an hour's time. I encourage you to do this. And again, if you're listening to this on podcast, you can simply, do a quick Google search for crash course or Chris Martinson or peakperformance.com. Wisdom for reflection. As Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, once said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Perhaps it's time to start looking for political heroes and start embodying the virtues and values we want to see in the world. After all, the most important vote you cast is the one you make with your actions. P.S. I would thoroughly enjoy continuing this conversation here on Substack. I have so much to learn, and yet I continue to be hopeful and optimistic that through thoughtful and caring conversations, we can traverse these challenging times together. So, let me hear from you. Click the comment button below and let me know what points resonate with you most strongly. And P.S. Stay tuned for more, including a conversation in the near future with my dear friend and heroic coach, Tim Banker. I will also be reaching out to Chris Martinson to see if he'll join me to discuss these challenging times and what we can do individually as well as collective. Again, this is Brad Swift, your Right on Purpose coach. Stay well and stay on purpose.